Okay, today is November the 25th, 2024, and I wanted to do another yard tour and show what's going on in my gardens today. It's about 2:15 p.m. So we've done a lot of work. Mike helped with it over the weekend, and I was working on it late last week, so I've done just a tremendous amount of work so far, starting these new garden areas up. And I'm still going to be very, very busy with it really the rest of the week. I'm in the process of getting mulch delivered for a couple areas that I'm going to show. And then I'm also working with, trying to work with this other person on the phone to get more compost delivered. So I did go pick up a truckload of compost earlier today. But I asked the lady about it at the business, and so they had she had a couple of cards that she gave me that I could call to see if they would deliver the compost. And then I'm trying to get compost from, I think it's called Mulch and More. I mean, not compost, mulch, from Mulch and More in Lenoir City. And so I ordered that earlier this morning, and it was supposed to be here within a couple of hours, but unfortunately, the delivery driver truck, the brake line went out, he said. And so they're in the process of trying to get that brake line fixed. And it might still get delivered today if he can get the brake line fixed. I think somebody's trying to do it themselves. He said it would just take like the time it went to Knoxville to get it. You know, it would actually take more time to do that than it would to just replace the brake line. And so that's why I haven't got my mulch yet. It was supposed to be here by like noon, but it's not here yet because their truck broke down. I told Mike, I told him about it on the phone. I said, seems like it's forces at worst trying to keep me from getting my mulch, trying to keep me from getting my gardening done here. That's kind of weird. So the guy's truck brake line went out right after I called trying to order my mulch from Mulch and More in Lenoir City. So that's kind of weird. I'm gonna make sure my camera's on here. Let me turn this around. So anyway, hopefully that will get delivered either today or tomorrow. And I'm getting a pretty good amount of it. I think I'm getting, what did I order? 9 cubic yards of mulch. And then I'm going to be getting about 10 cubic yards of compost. So I'm going to go around and show exactly what I'm doing here, what my plans are for these areas. Okay. And I guess the guys left over there. There was some kind of plumbing company over here digging up the yard. I guess they went somewhere to get something to come back because they left their shovels and everything over there. I don't know what they're doing. They're doing something over there across the road. Some kind of plumbing company was over there. I don't think that has anything to do with our lines, though. Our lines is on this side. So anyway, and then there was emergency vehicles. When I left to go get the compost about an hour ago, right over here across the street, there was fire trucks in the yard with their lights going and no sirens. And I don't know what was going on. And then when I got back, they were gone, and the plumbing company was across the street digging up that area over there. So maybe it has something to do with it. I'm not sure. Anyway, weird happenings today. I don't know. All that plus the guy's brake line going out at Mulch and More after I ordered my compost. Weird. Anyway, here's the compost I picked up. Oh no, I probably shouldn't have opened that yet. There we go. I better not do that because I got to get this up there. Anyway, so this is 1 yard of compost that I got from Living Earth in Solway, which is about 30 minutes from here. And that's where I'm trying to find a delivery driver to go get me about 10 more of these, so I don't have to keep going back and forth to get it. And all of that compost is mostly going up in that garden area up here, this back garden area. But I'll be saving back some of it to plant in my mulched areas in the front. And so this cottage garden is going to be mulched over top of that plastic, Mike. And all of the areas I'm about to show, I worked diligently last few days, removing the grass and tilling up the areas. And then Mike and it took us several hours to put down all this landscape plastic. over the weekend. And so it's pretty time consuming, but it's worth it. I've used this before. It will last for years. It's 6 milliliter, or I think the millimeter. And it will last for years. I've done this before and mulched on top, and you get absolutely no weeds that way. So it'll be weed free. So what I'm planning on doing is mulching the whole area, and then wherever I'm going to put my transplant in or plant my seed for my cottage garden, I'll just be cutting a hole out, okay, moving the mulch back, cutting a hole out, amending that hole just a little bit more before I put my transplant in or plant my seed in. Most of everything going here will be perennials started from seed, or that I started myself from seed in my indoors or in the greenhouse and then transplanted in the spring. And so this will mostly be for culinary herbs, medicinal herbs, a couple more blueberries, tea plants, anise hyssop, lemon balm, and plants like that. And a lot of flowers, flowers obviously also. And so I'm going to kind of round this a little bit more too, kind of make it a little bit more rounded. And so that'll be a nice mulched garden that, will be weed free. And then later we'll be building a pergola back there behind that garden. Probably not next year, probably by 2026. Because we want to kind of wait to build that pergola after we have like a privacy fence, all the way around here. So, with those evergreen trees. But anyway, and then another thing we're going to do in this area, because we don't want to be having to fool with weeding, right up against the house. And so I had this idea. We're going to actually build a very narrow raised bed, like 2-foot wide raised bed that's attached to the house that kind of is right behind this fig tree all the way down to that reblooming lilac. And so that will go out over top of that plastic just a little bit, and then it'll be, a couple feet wide, and then there'll be a nice little raised bed planting space there. And then we won't have to fool with any kind of weeds, that are right up against the house. So we're going to do that there. Okay, so let me walk around here and show what we've done in these other areas. So I've got a lot of work done since maybe I started the middle of last week. I've been working very, very hard on these areas most of the day. Okay, so this garden was tilled up. And also another thing that we did is after all the garden areas were tilled up, we actually spent several hours raking out all the grass and debris and rocks and everything by hand. And then making sure we got all that out before we put the plastic down. And it was tilled good. So this is also going to be just completely mulched, okay? I'm going to let the grass regrow on that side, which I always just kind of go a little bit out further than where I'm going to actually put my mulch when I first start a garden. But anyway, that's going to be, the whole section will be mulched. And this garden will primarily be used for planting okra and Roma tomatoes and green peppers and plants that you can space 2 or more feet apart. So it will be real easy to just cut a hole in the plastic, amend the soil there. That will be a permanent planting hole. And then there'll be mulch all around it everywhere else. And then it'll be weed free, no weeds. And then the great thing about doing mulch, when you do it initially, the majority of your investment is going to be your initial investment. You have to put the most layer at that point. And then after that, you only have to use about half as much. So I've done this before. I've been gardening for like 13, 14 years. So I've done this before. And so I don't need like a real deep mulch. I'm only going to do it a couple inches deep on top of that plastic. And then next year we'll just add another, like another inch as the other breaks down. Then you have to keep bringing that in every year. So my cost every year, I estimated, including my delivery fee, should be around $250 annually for the mulch. after this year. So I'm paying about $400. Yeah, so next year should be about $200. So I'm paying $400 this year for all the mulch that's going in these two areas. And then next year will be $200 and thereafter, unless, you know, prices go up a little bit more. But that's not too bad in my opinion, $200 a year for mulch. Okay, so that's what I'm doing in those two garden areas, and they'll be weed free. Oh, and one more thing. This area along the cattle panel where these raspberries are, I'm going to be weeding this real good, you know, up against the cattle panel. And I'll be pruning, trellising, and then also transplanting some of these raspberries so that there's raspberries all the way down 64-foot row. And then I'm going to be putting pine bark nuggets. I'm going to go get, in Solway at Living Earth, I'll get me a truckload of pine bark nuggets, which are great for acid-loving plants. And so I'm going to be putting pine bark nuggets all the way down through there around my raspberries. And the great thing about pine bark nuggets is they break down a lot more slowly, and you don't have to, I've used those before also. And I've noticed, you know, you can put those down if you put a good layer 3 or 4 inches deep. Generally, you only have to do that like every 3 years or so. Okay. But anyway, I'm going to be using the pine bark nuggets around my raspberries and also right around the base of my blueberry plants and around my grapes also, because grapes also can grow good in acidic soil, you know, like 5.5, 6.0. All right. And then that mulch again, I would only have to get more mulch maybe every 2 or 3 years if I got the pine bark nuggets for those particular plants. All right, here's my other garden area, big garden. Now you see where all the paths are. Now the mulch is not going on these paths. It would just be too much. The only, where area I'm worried about putting mulch is the front area where you can see it from the road all year. And so that looks, has curb appeal. But what we are going to be doing back here is, hopefully I'll have enough, but I've got all these Megan grasses growing on the bank. Once they die back, we're going to be cutting those down in maybe 4 sections, cutting and maybe 1 to 2 foot stalks with electric hedge trimmers. And then we may be able to use, hopefully I'll have enough material that I can, kind of put over top of the paths, over top of this plastic. And then that will be free every year. We can just use that every year from the main grasses. Okay. And then I've got to bring in a whole lot of compost for everywhere you don't see a garden, you see the plastic, that's where a planting space is. Just about. I mean, this area was tilled up, but it's actually not going to be used because I kind of went a little too far down. So basically where that edge of that plastic is where the garden will start, because I've got to leave space over here for mowing and walking and everything. You don't want it too close to those Megan grasses. So the edge will be right here where you see that plastic on this end. And so, we did row, that's about 75 feet. Okay. And going that way. And then I've got 2 bed areas going the opposite direction this way. That is 33 feet long by 5 feet wide. And all of my bed areas, that planting areas, are 5 feet wide. On this side, on that side up there, in between the rows, the paths, there's 5 foot wide sections. And so I've got two 33 feet long by 5 foot long planting sections on this side. And then in this garden section, I have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because there's not going to be, it's just going to be open to the grass on that side. So that's where that last row of landscape plastic is. There's another row right above that planting row. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 75 foot rows. Okay. So there's 5 75-foot rows of beds that are 5 foot wide. Okay. And then on this side, the opposite direction, 2 5 foot wide rows that are 33 feet long. And so that's how I've set this large garden area up. Okay. And so basically, again, the only thing I have to do in here, which is still going to be a lot of work, I'm going to have about a total of about 10 truckloads of compost, or 10 yards of compost that I'll just be kind of putting right on top of the soil and then mixing in, in the spring. I'd like to have more, but I mean, I'm not going to get more than that. And then probably, this area has been actually used before for gardening, and so it's been amended several times over the years. So this is probably the last time I'll be bringing in compost in that amount to do this with this garden area. And then going forward, I'm just going to plant cover crop. So everywhere there's a open garden space for growing food, a cover crop will be planted in the fall and then tilled under in the spring. And then I'll be making as much homemade compost as I can here, and then kind of lightly applying that to the areas. And then these other areas that are completely covered with plastic and mulch, most of the plants, at least in that garden out here, will be planted several feet apart, like tomatoes, okra, peppers, etc. And you just have to amend the hole, okay? But again, the whole area in those gardens have been amended previously, and so I can do it that way. And same thing down here. This garden area down here was used for years, and was amended quite a bit. And so I really don't need to add any more compost to it. I can just amend each hole, where things are going to be planted, and then keep that mulched and weed free, because I have to make it, manageable for this level of gardening. This is about twice as much, I suppose, I've ever done at one time. So there'll be, hopefully I'll have a lot of harvest. And then I've got one more garden space up here. And this is going to be my corn growing area and my melon, pumpkin, and squash growing area. And if I don't have enough maiden grass straw, I'm going to use all my maiden grass straw first on those paths down here. If I don't have enough, I ain't doing anything with this up here, just leaving the plastic down, because I'm just going to be, cutting a hole out, amending the hole, and usually watermelons and pumpkins are spaced 4 to 5, 6 feet apart. So, and they vine. So all of that will be covered, with the vining plants. And then I left a little section open here for just some fresh eating corn. Not a whole lot, but I've got enough for 4 rows. That's only about, I'm going to try it this way. It's only about 5 foot, 6 foot wide in the area I've left open and didn't put any plastic down for growing corn. And I'm going to kind of plant the corn square foot garden method about every foot apart both ways in 4 rows and see how it does. I've seen other people do that and had success with it, so I'm going to try it. I may not get 2 ears per stalk, but even if I didn't, there's enough space there to grow 100 corn plants and 100 ears of corn, and that's plenty enough for fresh eating and a little bit for preserving. So that's the last garden area. So anyway, this has been thus far a tremendous amount of my time and physical effort, which has resulted in a lot of joy that I've been able to get this far in such a short time and get this much done, but also a lot of pain and soreness, muscles, and exhaustion. But I'm getting it done. But unless you've ever done anything like this before, you have no idea. So trust me, it's like a tremendous amount of physical work that, like every muscle in my body is sore. Okay. I could barely walk last night. That is no joke. I could barely walk. But, an Advil I've been taking, or not I've been taking a leave a couple of times a day. And I was so desperate, I drank a whole a hot water with a whole tablespoon of turmeric in it this morning. It's supposed to help with inflammation and pain. And that's nasty. but you know, it does help. So anyway, this is what I've got done in less than a week. How about that? Now Mike did help a few hours over the weekend, but besides that, I've done, you know, the majority of it myself. But he did help. He probably did help. I'd say he helped about 8 or 10 hours over the weekend with this stuff. So, and I've put in, oh, I don't know how much time. I don't know how many hours I've spent. But it's amazing how much we got done within a week's time. But anyway, hopefully they can get me my mulch today or tomorrow, and then the other guy will come and deliver my compost for me, so I don't have to keep running 30 minutes one way out there back and forth to get my compost, because I still need at least 10 more yards of this stuff. So yeah, so that's, you know, just part of it is cost. You know, I don't want to spend, like, I mean, it's going to be a good amount of investment setting this up. I'm at probably about $700 for the compost and mulch to get these started up, and then we had to spend about $250 for the plastic and the pins, so it's about $950. So it's almost $1,000 investment to get all these garden spaces done this way, and get them finished and ready for planting in the spring. But after this year, I've estimated my cost would be, because I'm just gonna be doing cover cropping, not bringing in more compost and then making my own homemade compost. My ongoing cost should just be about $200 a year, $200 to $250 a year for bringing in more mulch. And then I can probably do all my cover cropping for about $50 for the seeds, and then make my own homemade compost for free with all the leaves from the yard and materials I get from the gardens and all that. But as far as cost it goes to get all of this started up, about $1,000 investment, and it's what's going to end up having costed almost $1,000 investment. But that's definitely worth it. And these, you know, and then they'll be ready to go. And like I said, future costs probably $200, $250 a year for those type of materials. Yeah, but anyway, the other factor is also the amount of work and time involved, because I can, you know, it's not the easiest thing to spread compost and mulch. I do have a big scoop. I don't have to just use a regular little shovel. But it's time consuming, and you use a lot of muscles in your body, and it, you know, it's extremely exhausting and tiring. So it's not, you know, I think I can handle, what am I going to have, 20? So basically, the work I have left ahead of me, let's just put it this way, work I have left ahead of me is shoveling out 20, the equivalent of 20 of these in compost and mulch, scoopful by scoopful, a majority of which will have to go into a wheelbarrow, and then I'll have to transport that wheelbarrow to where I want it to go in the garden, and then dump it out, and then spread it out with my rake. So if that gives you an idea about how much work I'm going to have to do this fall and winter just for getting these gardens started. I messed up. I opened that up again. It'll be okay. Okay. 20 of those. 20, equivalent of 20 truckload fulls, pickup truckload, F-150 pickup truckload fulls of compost and mulch. Yeah. I'm a serious gardener, because you'd have to be like crazy, right, to do that. But I can do it. I am not. I've you know, I know how to do this. I've shoveled out mulch and compost before. Never that much in a year. think the most I've probably done is 5 or 6 truckloads in a year. So that's about 4 times as much as I've ever done before. I already know how much work it is because I've shoveled out compost before and mulch. So, help me, Jesus. I can do it. But I told Mike, I said, you know what? That's going to be great exercise for me over the winter. Might help me keep from gaining any holiday weight. And might help me keep me from getting the flu and the cold. And getting sick like I did last winter, because I'm going to be out here working over the following winter unless it's like below freezing. I'll be out here in my long johns and flannel and coat and work boots and, shoveling, spreading compost and mulch and otherwise getting my gardens ready for planting in the spring or in the month, starting in the month of March. Another thing I got to do is build a center block potato bed about 3 foot deep. It's going to go back here. It's going to be mortared together, a permanent bed. And then I will have to go get a truckload of actual raised bed soil from that same place and then fill that raised potato bed with that soil. Yeah. This is all the grass and stuff that I raked out of this garden. It just took a few hours is all. So, now, I mean, it really wasn't that bad. I think it took me about 3 hours, I think, to rake out the material around the garden. Yeah, it was about 3 hours took to do this section by myself. Except because Mike was working in the other areas. He did the other garden down here in this garden, raked it out, and then we both did that one. But this took me 3 hours just to rake the stuff out after I tilled it up. And yeah, that was a lot of work. But the great thing is once you get all that that type of work done,